Tonight, we're going a bit wacky and talking about some ridiculous games we've played.
To go along with that, I picked out 3 rather unique games for our reviews tonight, each arguably ridiculous in its own way. First, Trash Talk, then Words of a Feather, and finally, Pusheen the Stacking Game.
We're also going to be talking about our recent gameplays, which includes first thoughts on Reign of Dragoness.
Before all that, we better let people know who we are. I'm Sean, your host, and with us we have our editor and webmaster, Deanna.
Hello to all the bellhop boarders.
And Mo, the tabletop bellhop himself.
I am Mo Tuzano, the tabletop bellhop, your cardboard concierge, helping you make your game nights better.
We aim to record on Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern live at twitch.tv/tabletopbellhop, and we love it when people join us in the lobby, our chat room.
This episode exists in part thanks to our Patreon patrons. You can find detailed show notes for this episode at tabletopbellhop.com/episode 274. That's 274. Some of the links there may be affiliate links.
Some quick announcements before we move on to answering one of your gaming questions.
So first up, a heads up, we are not going to be recording an episode next week. This year, Deanna and I are celebrating our 20th wedding anniversary and spending a week exploring parts of Ontario we've never been before. If you're curious about that, be sure to follow our socials because I'm sure I'll be sharing pics of the food we eat and the beers we drink and the games we're playing.
We are going to sneak in so many breweries, but that means no live show and also no new episode on May 27th.
Now, the other thing we're going to announce, and this was just decided today after a conference call I was on earlier today, is it looks like we probably are going to go to Origins. That is pending any changes between the relationship between the U.S. and Canada and anything that happens in the U.S. leading up to the date in June. One of the things I do want to call out is I will be on panels there, possibly Deanna as well. We're hoping to sub me out for Deanna for one of these. So if you are attending Origins, I do have 2 panels that I think would be cool for you to check out. One is A Question of Trust, the role of media in the tabletop space. That's going to go Friday at noon in meeting room A226 on the 2nd floor. That's the one I plan on sitting in. The other one is Making the Case for Written Coverage in Tabletop Game Media. That's also Friday, 3 o'clock, also on the 2nd floor, but room A214. That one's kind of near and dear to our heart because despite the fact you're listening to this on our podcast, our actual main thing, the main thing we do is the Tabletop Bellhop blog, which is written content. That is where we get the most views, the most people check us out, we get the most comments and the most interaction. So we feel pretty strongly about the case for written coverage in tabletop gaming media. And that one I'm hoping to actually swap the seat out and have Deanna on or maybe get both of us on. So yes, we should be at Origins this year and we will be on a couple panels. So check those out.
The Tabletop Bellhop team is here to answer your gaming and game night questions. Tonight's question comes from Benjamin Piat, who asked, what is the most ridiculous game you ever played? Why?
So what a fun question. We've had this one in our question pile for a while and we keep talking about it. We're like, I got to think about this one for a bit. And we kind of put it off. But I think this is a great question. This is the kind of thing that's kind of fun to talk about. So what I think we're going to do, though, is I don't want to like that sounds like an AMA question, right? Like we're each going to answer one thing, talk about why, and we'll be done. That's a little too short. I think what we want to do is dig a bit further and talk about some of the most ridiculous games we played, not just talk about one each. I think that's going to be way more interesting.
So one warning in advance, this isn't necessarily going to be one of our game recommendation episodes. We didn't spend time confirming that the games we're talking about are in print or easily available. And in fact, I'll guarantee some of the ones that I'm mentioning are not easily available. So be warned.
Us talking about these games isn't necessarily an endorsement either, depending on the situation.
That is true.
Well, yes, you may be interested in procuring some of these games, and we will include links to where you can get the ones that you can find in the show notes. Just don't get your hopes up. I don't want you to be disappointed when you can't find something wacky and out of print.
Yeah, make that the ones we can find. I'm not going to try too hard to find links on these, but I will say Noble Knight is your friend. Please use the Noble Knight affiliate link on our webpage if shopping there. And we'll drop that in the chat for sure. That's one of the best places to find out-of-print games. Free advertisement for Noble Knight. So one thing that was fascinating about this before we actually started going is Deanna and I were talking about it. And she's like, Deanna doesn't like to read my notes ahead of time. She likes to do her own thing in the other room and not even see it. So she's not influenced, right? So I'm like, then she came in and I had a question on something and I'm like, oh, I'm going to talk about this and this. She's like, whoa, okay, you are thinking about ridiculous in a very different way than I am. So honestly, as I went through the notes, I'm like, I started off with one thing and then kind of went to other things. And the way this is actually going to break down is we're going to talk about different types of ridiculousness and then games that fit those types, I think, without necessarily throwing everything into individual buckets, but at least talking about a few different ways games can be ridiculous and examples of those.
I think my initial gut reaction when someone says, what's the most ridiculous, is crazy wild out there. And I know there's some of our games have gone that way and some of our games haven't. There's a lot of just many ways to take it. But for me, that first thought was, what's just like, why would anyone ever do this? This is nuts. This is totally off the wall. How did this even make it past a publisher onto a shelf? Sort of ridiculous is my first take.
That's honestly where my head went to, though. And it's not necessarily a negative thing, just like, who the heck thought that up? Or when you hear about it, you're like, they made a game on that. You know, like that's the kind of stuff that popped into my head right off the bat.
So going back directly to Benjamin's question, the first thing that came to my mind is I was like, I thought of a ridiculous game I played, but it wasn't ridiculous because of the game itself. What I did with it. So back in the day, one of the games that got me into hobby gaming is Talisman 2nd Edition from Games Workshop. That was the big popular edition that was hard to find, probably still the most collectible edition that had multiple expansions for it with a ridiculous number of characters and additional boards you could place on all corners. No miniatures at this time, though you could buy them separately from Citadel. I love that game so much. It's part of why I got a White Dwarf subscription. I had it all. I had absolutely everything except for some of the miniatures because the only place to buy them in Windsor at that time was Dragon's Den and Randy couldn't get them all. So we set up, and this was me and my cousin John, set up a game of Talisman at his house, his mom's house. We were kids. And we decided we are going to play the ultimate game of Talisman where the only way to win is to empty the adventure card deck from every single expansion. So we had to collect every item and defeat every monster and have every encounter on the board before we could finish.
Oh, that's a choice.
Yes.
Yep.
And it was utterly ridiculous. I was over there for a week. It took us 4.5 days and we played, I don't even know how many hours. Enough that like my aunt kicked us out of the house one point and gave us money to walk to the corner store so we get off our butts and stop playing this game. So when I heard ridiculous games, the first thing that popped in my head was that ridiculous 4-day game of Talisman 2nd Edition where we decided you can't win, you can't get the Crown of Command until the adventure deck was empty.
And this is why house rules are dangerous.
Yes.
And speaking of house rules, my idea of ridiculous, because wacky and just out there was the first thing, was in Mo's upstairs in Mo's house playing Cat's Mansion, which we've talked about on the show many times, but using Warhammer miniatures, which led to the you can't hiss an orc through a wall. But you can punch an orc through a window.
Yeah, it was. You can't hiss a cat through a wall, but you can punch an orc through a window, I think was our ruling at one point because the board had windows.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had, if I remember correctly, we put out orc miniatures and then they were trying to collect like a bolter and other fantasy like items. And the color of the cat was the color of the orc and we could shoot each other. And we had made combat rules by the end. And if I remember correctly, knowing Sean and I, there were character sheets involved eventually.
Now, based on this being like a gaming experience, one of the silliest games I ever played was during Extra Life. And this is going back several years when we used to actually do the whole 24-hour straight overnight marathon gaming event. And it was either the first or second time we did Extra Life. And around 5 or 6 a.m., we thought it'd be great to gather everyone that was still in the store and play a massive game of Telestrations. And we couldn't handle it because we were all giddy on coffee and lack of sleep, and people just started laughing and laughing and laughing. And I don't even remember what the heck was so funny, but people were laughing until they were crying, bent over laughing, literally getting ill from laughing, and then having to tap out and go home. They were done. They couldn't stay up and play any more games. Telestration broke them. It actually halved the attendance of our event because Telestrations at 6 a.m. when you have not slept is apparently a bad idea. And I was talking to Gwen about this earlier, and I think that was the same Extra Life event where, and I know I just told this story last week, where Big J dumped all the games all the cards from Ascension, all the expansions in one giant box, shook them up and played it that way. So that was two ridiculous things in one 24-hour period.
I remember there was a McDonald's filet of fish sandwich also involved in people not feeling well that night. All right, I'm going to go with another experience. This goes way back, gaming with Sean, and I discovered a new game because I went to Toronto with my parents, and we went to the Silver Snail, and next to it was a Warhammer store. And I went in there looking for talisman stuff, so it kind of ties to the other story. And they had a brand new game called Warhammer Fantasy Battle. That goes way back. Hardcover rule book. From that, we got into Warhammer. Me, Sean, our friend Steve, other friends of the time period. And we used to buy like the miniature boxes that had 6 different armies in them and split them up. And we didn't get to play very often. So we got a chance. Sean's sister was going out of town, and we were able to set up, I think it was an 8x4 table. I don't know. It was on sawhorses in his sister's room. And we were going to play Warhammer Fantasy Battle, Orcs versus Dark Elves. But we also had the Warhammer Armies book. So that let us use allies. So we decided to play a battle with every miniature I owned, if I remember correctly, or pretty close to it. It was a 3-day game. We played the entire weekend, like Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Did not finish the game, and Sean's mom forced us to clean up the table. And if I remember, even your sister was like, "No, it's okay. I'll sleep in the corner." At least that's my memory of it. And I don't even remember how old we were at the time.
Yeah, she wouldn't have cared. And it was wild. I mean, we weren't using, we didn't have everything painted. I think we probably had everything primed, or most of it primed, but definitely not everything painted. But this was back in the days before the 3x3 table, where there were rules for pivoting and turning, and everything took forever.
Oh yeah.
And it wasn't just a 500 points plate for 3 hours and you're done. No, this was the original rules where everything had, and drummer, there were musicians and flag bearers and all the fun stuff.
Yeah, where you're like, I'm gonna wheel this unit towards you, so I have to make a willpower test or whatever test to see if I can get my troops to wheel, and I get +1 because I've got a musician in the front rank, and oh no, I can't wheel, so what's the unit do instead? Well, they move forward a half move, and huge massive blocks of troops, and that was a ridiculous game.
Lots of rulers and templates and
and that was before people had come up with the idea of movement trays, or if they had, we didn't know about it yet. So it's an awful lot of trying to move units of troops. Oh, it was a mess.
All right, I'm going to change it up. The first thing that I thought of when we started talking about this topic is games that when I first heard of them, I thought, wow, that's ridiculous. So like when legacy games first started to be a thing, I have a very clear memory of being in the car listening to a podcast. Like I remember what street we were driving down, and they're talking about time stories. And you and I were going, that is the silliest thing I've ever heard of. Like, how stupid is that? A game you can only play once. And I remember when Risk Legacy first came out, like it almost sounded like a joke, right? It didn't. It was like something a Saturday Night Live skit would be based around, like a game where you can tear up cards and mark up the board. Like, what the heck? And in retrospect, that was the start of many cool new games. But at the time, it did seem pretty ridiculous.
Now, when thinking of ridiculous games, the first thing that came to my mind were all the ridiculous, like, toyetic kids games. Goliath is really well known for making these. Ones I had as a kid, though, that stuck out was I Want to Bite Your Finger, which was a game about moving around a board, and every time you moved, you had to turn a clock, and eventually the vampire would open his cloak, and then you had to put your finger in his mouth and touch his mouth, and he would leave little bite marks on you. And like even just how ridiculous is Hungry Hippos as a game, like especially though I've still never seen anyone else play it by the proper rules, where you're only supposed to launch one marble, and then when it's caught you launch another one. That's by the rules. I don't know if anyone plays that way, because then it's actually a little strategy instead of you just pound the thing over and over. A game was better by playing by the rules. Who knew? One that our kids had that Gwen loved when she could barely walk was Elefun, and all it really was a giant like blower, and you put butterflies in it and it blew them all over the room and you tried to catch them. I'm like, how ridiculous is that? I'm like, it's like a leaf blower turned upside down and it just blows stuff. And then like you see it in the commercials and it's like one comes out at a time. Oh, heck no. It would just boom, all the butterflies everywhere.
And it's funny because, Dee was talking about legacy games and how ridiculous that seemed at the time. And I think there's a lot of what we play today that probably would have been considered ridiculous back in the day. Like if you go back to say, even the early 90s and say, and propose Gloomhaven to someone. I mean, this giant box full of all this stuff, and you're going to be creating your characters, and you're only going to be able to play the once because you're forming these characters in this team, and it just sounds wild. Well, that's a ton of money and a ton of product for how much money, and you're only going to get to play through it once? Well, no, I mean, because at the time, every board game out there was literally just played over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. Most of those games were meant to be played like every week for the rest of your life.
Yeah, along those lines, another one that came to mind for me was Chronicles of Crime, which I actually quite liked when we tried it out. But the whole AR thing sounded so silly to me. And like there's a prop, like a set of Viewmaster glasses you can put on your phone. Just the entire app thing sounded so ridiculous. And so that's another one that sounded wacky. It actually plays out rather well. And overall, while I have mixed feelings about games that require phone apps, there are enough out there that are worth playing. But like when that first started to be a trend, I was like, wow, that's just goofy.
Yeah, and an example of one that I found didn't work very well, but just had an interesting concept was that World of Yoho, where your phone was your playing piece and you put it out on the board and it somehow used AR to read what was on the board where it was put. And then when you battled each other, you picked up your phones and stuff. And there's some really interesting concepts there. But that was before developers realized how much it cost to maintain an app over time. And sadly, that is a game that's now unplayable because of it. Now, Chronicles of Crime and Lucky Duck, as far as I know, everything still works great. And I don't know what kind of license they have, but I think you're all good. I think you have toyetic games for older kids and ones I actually played as a kid. One that's recently reprinted, and you can go buy a new copy right now, is Crossbows and Catapults. Restoration Games brought that game back to reality. But like, how ridiculous is this game? You build plastic blocks and then you're firing actual discs at other people's castles. And again, there were actual rules that actually involved melee combat and miniatures too, but like no one played by that. You just shot each other. Another one that was just as toyetic to me was Torpedo Run. I will never forget playing that on my mom's porch because that was the only place it fit. We couldn't set it up in my parents' house because there was no room. That had a giant mat and you had you had ships and subs and you fired at the subs. And then a game I had to Google to try to find that I don't remember if Sean played as much as I did, but I adored this game. And it was G.I. Joe Cobra Battle, where you each had a base that had 4 targets on it and you shot foam missiles at each other trying to hit the targets on your bases. Like, I adored that game. That was so awesome.
There were a lot of games back in the day where you could actually fire missiles at or weapons at each other. This was a common thing in the 80s and early 90s. And they have put a stop to that sort of thing these days, much like you can't get lawn darts anymore. Things that go flying at your opponents are generally frowned on in games.
Now, moving to stuff that's now still pretty readily available or still around or that we're still playing. I got to call it Loop and Louie as a pretty ridiculous game. You got this like gyroscopic plane that you're hitting flippers up, trying to knock into chickens, like barn raising. Is that the term? You're trying to scare the chickens out. Like, it's got a ridiculous theme. It's super toyetic. It's loud. It's actually so loud. It's annoying. It takes batteries, but man, is it a ton of fun.
What about that silly lumberjack game? Click Clack Lumberjack. Like, let's tap at logs with a plastic axe. Or, I mean, really any Dex game. Let's put things in a giant hamster roll. Let's place things on a rocking pirate ship, riffraff. Let's flick things around an old West City. Flick them up. Let's stack funky wooden pieces. Junkart, Vila, Paletti, probably some other Dex game I'm not thinking of. Oh, and let's not forget skyrockets or kites where we just all flip sand timers.
Yeah, I totally agree. There's a lot of kind of ridiculous dexterity games. Like, one of the best, most popular games we have at all our public play events is a game like released for 6-year-olds, and it's Go Cuckoo, and it's about building a bird's nest out of sticks. And like, Pitch Car is actually a pretty cool game and almost thematic, but like, you're flicking wooden crokinole discs around a like custom made racetrack. Or Drop It, another huge one. It's like a wacky version of Tetris.
All right. One of the ones that came to mind for me is just, component wise. What is that ridiculous component wise? Well, there's actually came out on Kickstarter a while ago, and it is available for purchase, I believe, still. But Necro Molds, which is actually a Play-Doh tabletop battle game where depending on what mold you use on your Play-Doh creatures, you get different stats and things. Yep. But going way back to something even more ridiculous, because this one actually had like molds and was designed to make pretty little characters for the tabletops. Back in the days of Dragon Magazine, there was a often heard of but not often found game called Clayorama. And we did get a chance to play that at the University of Windsor at least once, where the form you mash out of your Play-Doh is your character, and what happens to your character happens, there's all sorts of rules about, how many hit points you have and your stats and things like that based on this blob of Play-Doh you are using as your character.
And Clayorama is still played every year at Origins Game Fair and probably multiple other cons, but every year they have a Clayorama tournament at Origins Game Fair. So there are people out there keeping that game alive.
Okay, I did not know that. I think I might have seen it in the book. I did not realize it was a consistent thing.
Consistent every year. Heck, maybe we should sign up this year. Yeah, there's a ton of games with ridiculous components. Over the top production too. Like sometimes it's just like, the heck, this is a little ridiculous. Like one of the most recent games that did that to me was Sushi Boat. Right, like it gives you a wooden boat and like these plastic plates with domed stickers on them, so it actually looks like sushi covered in glass. And you push it down the island, and it's even an important mechanic in the game because part of the island's covered, and you get a wasabi challenge, and you have to remember what color plates are under there. And I'm like, it's a giant chunky piece of wood. Like there's probably more wood in that game than junk art, and it's reasonably priced, which is kind of shocking. And then of course you've got like Fireball Island, right? Like that again, back in the day, also it's been reproduced and all the expansions for it. Like, can you get more ridiculous than your board being a giant 3-dimensional island that's like, I don't know what it is, 3 feet by 2 feet? And then just smaller little things like the ceramic bowls. I don't know what it is with ceramic bowls in board games anymore, but like a Sushi Boat has a tip, not a tip dish, a wasabi dish. And then we were playing Mackie Master the other day. It comes with a wasabi dish. Words of a Feathers, though, are just like ridiculously like fine china looking with detailed patterns on them. And I'm like, I get it. I like these components. They're neat, but they're kind of ridiculous. Like I have wooden bowls, I can just use silicone cup holders. Like this is kind of strange to include all this stuff
in something that's not a deluxe edition or
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. That's base game. That's not even upgrade. One of the things that I was thinking of is some of what sort of now looking back seems ridiculous in the way we look. We think some of this stuff that we have now would have been ridiculous then. Now I look back at some things and I think are now ridiculous, like the mass number of Simon Says or Bop It type games. One of the ones that really comes to mind for me is actually Merlin, which was, that's about as old as we are, pretty close. And it was essentially a cell phone that played a couple of different games. And it was actually a Spiel des Jahres nominee in 1979. Wow. And it's just like a 3x3 grid of buttons with a couple of extra buttons for game choice.
So it looks like a traditional phone, not a cell phone. Really,
well, it's a traditional phone without a cord or anything, right? It's like the old brick phones of the.
Yes, it looks like an old brick phone. We had Merlin growing up. My dad loved that thing. I think it actually had like 12 different games. It wasn't just 3.
It was 6.
And then there were like things you could slide into it to change the color of the lights. And for its time, it was a pretty neat thing. Well, if you want to go way back and you're talking about those, though, I got to bring up the Wacky Waterfalls. Like the handheld games that you filled with water and then you tried to get the rings on the dolphin's nose or whatever. Do those count as tabletop games? I don't know. Bringing up Merlin and Simon reminds me of those.
I was thinking of Tower of Madness, that Kerplunk-like game where you pull out the tentacles. It's pretty over the top. Poseidon's Kingdom, specifically the second edition. which was originally a Kickstarter, where it has the wave that crashes the dice down onto the board, but also these very overproduced playing pieces that are large painted resin figurines, like full-on knickknacks that are your starfish and octopuses and stuff. Dimensions, you get a giant 3-foot tall pop-up dollhouse. That's pretty over the top.
Dimensions though was awesome.
It was awesome.
It's an escape room in a box game where you literally built the house that you're exploring and walking through, and it's like dollhouse size. Like that. Right? Yes, that's ridiculous, but so cool.
And then on top of that, they made that very elaborate scrapbook that had all these things that you could interact with inside it too. Like it wasn't just the dollhouse. So yeah, it was. But every Kickstarter ever with 600 unique miniatures and giant toddler-sized minis of Elder Gods.
Yeah, the Galactus from Marvel Zombies. It seems like we've gotten a little better. That it's not like every week there's a new Kickstarter with 80,000 miniatures, but like Restoration Games just launched one today. Maybe it was yesterday, where the miniatures are 180 millimeters tall. Which I pulled out earlier and I forget exactly, but it's like 9
Barbie
inches.
doll height, if you want to visualize
Barbie doll height. The miniatures in the game are Barbie doll height. And I was just like, okay, that's ridiculous. Like, do you really need miniatures that big? I guess maybe it's to keep everything in scale. Instead of like physically ridiculous, some games are ridiculous because of what you do in them, and feature ridiculous mechanisms. And I gotta say, the first one that popped in my head, like when I started thinking about this, not as ridiculous game nights I had or ridiculous things I've done with games, when I was thinking of ridiculous games, yes, I have played this. Pizza Wars from James LaFond. This is an area control war game that you play on an actual pizza. There's stats for pepperoni warriors and green pepper berets, and you actually play on the pizza, and then at the end of the game, you're stuck eating your slices with whatever toppings were left on them. And, the player who did the best is going to get the best toppings. This is a real war game put out by, like a simulationist war gamer to play a battle game on an actual pizza. And I've got to say, that's probably up there for one of the most ridiculous games I've ever heard of or played.
So, and there's also a newer version, Pizza Wars Imperium, where there are alternate rules, I believe 3 different alternate rules with some additional food you could use. They did apparently, however, leave out Gulf War because, according to the author, no one would be able to afford to fill a bathtub with chili con carne.
Wow.
Okay. When you're thinking of ridiculous mechanics, I thought about Once Upon a Line, that scratch-off adventure game.
Yeah,
that's all I got to say. Scratch off.
Very unique. That one was kickstarted successfully, still hasn't delivered. So we'll see if that one takes off. I still really want to hear other reviewers' thoughts on that. You can check out our preview. Sean and I played it. Yeah, scratch tickets. Yeah, to play an adventure game with strong story elements. It was very odd. Now, not as crazy as playing with a real pizza, but I have a cooperative team-based architectural game all about building structures, but you're cavemen. And it's a team-based game where you have one player is the architect trying to instruct the worker, but you can't use English. You have to use caveman words and gestures like motions, like wiggle your hips, to get your partner to do it. It was originally released as something like Architect. I can't remember the original name. Been re-released as UGTech, sadly very out of print. Now, the other thing it has is a blow-up club, which the architect uses to hit the other players when they get it wrong. This is one of the most amusing games out there. This draws a crowd, and I don't know why we haven't brought this out to Walkerville. So if you want to see this game and you're in the chat room, come out tomorrow night because we got to bring this one out.
Club.
So interestingly, UGTech is not the only game with an inflatable club. There's also Poetry for Neanderthals, which is a game where the other players are allowed to hit the poet if they use more than one syllable in any word spoken.
Yeah, that one bugs me because there's so many people claiming that's unique. And I'm like, no, Architect, which is, I think, what the original was called, and then UGTech did it first.
Okay, how about nyctophobia? Let's wear blindfolds and play a board game where your lack of vision is a major part of the game. And it's not some silly dex game, it's a serious strategy game. Like, it's a great game on many levels, the theming, the sense of dread, the accessibility for blind meeple. But it just wows me that someone even thought this game up. It is so outside of the box. I feel like it's sitting down the hall in another room.
Yeah, that is pretty ridiculous. Like you literally wear black oak glasses. Wear black oak glasses while playing the game. And like when I first opened it, I'm like, why are the components so odd? But then I realized it's so you can touch them. I'm like, the trees are like spiky things. I'm like, oh, of course the trees are spiky things. They don't look at all like trees, but when your eyes are closed and someone touches your finger and you move south, you're like, oh no, that's a forest. How ridiculous is Camel Up? All right, it's a betting game about camel racing, except the camels can land on top of each other, and when a camel moves, it brings everything that's on top of it with it. It's just the entire concept. Like who came up with that? And now, like the newest edition of the game, there's now a backwards camel that's running the other way. Like the game just keeps getting more ridiculous as it comes out, and then like they have expansions where like you can get bonus points by putting a photographer at the right spot to catch the most camels going by. It's just such a ridiculous theme. And honestly, mechanics too. It's got both going on there.
Yeah, along the same lines, I was thinking of Niagara with the 3D board with the waterfall and you're paddling canoes full of gems. Like, okay, first off, why do I have canoes full of gemstones on the Niagara River? But whatever. And you're trying not to go over the falls, and your canoe can go right over the falls, and there's little clear discs that you kind of neat that you flow down the river on. And it was marketed as a kid's game, so it makes sense. It looks so toy-horrific, but yeah, that one's pretty unique. And when I first saw it, I thought it was rather wacky.
One of the games that our family had when I was a kid, that really didn't make any sense to me, although it turns out it's actually a huge, giant thing, and that's Pass the Pigs. Yeah. This is a massively, been out for decades and decades, bar game, where you are literally rolling two pigs onto the table, and the position that the pigs result in is how you score. And in the first 1 to 100 points or whatever wins the game, but you're just rolling pigs on the table. Mm-hmm. And if that's not ridiculous, I don't know what is.
And to be fair, that one's still popular. We have had groups playing that at our Walkerville events as early as our last event. That gets played regularly by people I know. My parents grew up playing that game. Like my mom, it's one of her favorite games, and she has fond memories of it, especially playing with baseball teams and alcohol being involved.
Okay, I literally did not know. I mean, I've heard the term Pass the Pig. I knew there was a game by that name. I had no clue what it was until Sean just described it just now.
Breakdancing meeple, but with pigs.
Yeah,
and that was my next call out, was actually breakdancing meeple, because let's roll meeple around and make that a game and score for it.
But then let's give it a breakdancing theme, which honestly I think kind of makes that game, because you want the meeples on their heads and whatever. And I still gotta say the silk screening on those meeples kind of makes that game even cooler. But again, how ridiculous, right? We're gonna let's not just put wooden meeple in breakdancers. We're gonna have one with a backwards cap, and we're gonna have one with a clock on their chest. Like, it's so ridiculous. Dungeon Fighter. It's a dungeon crawling game where you're going through dungeons and fighting bad guys, but the way you actually do combat is you throw dice at a target. And then there's all kinds of special rules, like you might be fighting a basilisk, and it'll turn to stone if you look at it, so you have to close your eyes before throwing, or you might have to toss the die off your shoulder, or you have to bounce it off your elbow, and you do damage based on how close you are to the targets. And just to make it interesting, there's holes in the target that the dice can fall into, like the whole thing. I'm like, who came up with this? I'm like, is it one of those simulationist role players? It's like a roll to hit's not fair because it doesn't challenge the player. Let's get some dexterity elements in there. But you know what? It's a ton of fun. I have had fun every time I have played that game. And I got to thank local gamer Kevin Doak for introducing me to that one.
So I got a couple of things. One is a ridiculous expansion. So take a game. A game that people are passionate about, that people love, and it keeps getting expansions and new ways to lay out tiles and build a map and intricate scoring systems on the table. And then you add a catapult. Why did Carcassonne add a catapult as their 7th expansion? It makes no sense. Did they jump the shark?
Yes. Yes, that's when I stopped. That literally for me was the last straw. I'm like, I'm done. Princess and the Dragon was close. I'm like, here you have a heavy strategy game with a random element of a dragon that moves around and eats my meeples. Once the catapult came out, no.
Yeah.
That is where I stopped.
And then going way back, we're going back to the 60s. There was a game called Dynamite Shack, which was literally kids were hammering sticks of dynamite into a shack until it blew up, and whoever blew up the shack lost.
Oh, I'd play that. I would. So that's like obviously ridiculous, over the top game, but also it's a ridiculous theme. So
I mean, everything about this game is just, what were they thinking?
I don't know. I remember I had a game as a kid where you built a power tower, like an electrical tower, and then blew it up using an air and a plunger. I don't remember the mechanics of the game, but I had that. That was also like, why am I blowing up this tower once we build it? Speaking of ridiculous themes, I have a few I want to call out. Pooh. I have to call that out because Pooh's a really good game. It's a really good take that card game about throwing Pooh at the other players, using cards, and you need a D20 to keep track of your health. And honestly, it's a great take that game. I think I got that one as a gift because I would never buy anything named Pooh. And this is long before we did review copies, so it wasn't that. And then I played, I'm like, oh, this is actually good. Next one that's behind me, one of the oldest game in my collection, that was my dad's. It's Snit's Revenge from Tom Wham. This is a one versus many game about snits, which are creatures with big noses and long legs, invading the body of a bigger creature, which I forgot to look up the name of, and trying to kill it by kicking its internal organs, while the other player was playing the immune system of the creature, trying to keep it alive and get the snits out. And then I was thinking about, I'm like, how unique a theme is decorum? Like, Gwen brought the game up to put on our shelf, and she's like, how is that ridiculous? I'm like, come on, this is a game. It's a cooperative puzzle game about passive aggressive cohabitation. Like, come on, how ridiculous a theme is that for a board game?
And in this case, the absolute uniqueness of the theme is what drew me to that game. I had to try it because how bizarre of a concept is that, right?
So I actually also had Snits on my list. I didn't read your list, obviously. I had Snits Revenge on mine later on. It is the Bolotomus is the monster that was being invaded.
That one also had ridiculous mechanics because one of the ways you could determine how many snits the players got is how many they could balance on the end of their nose before they fell over.
All right, so Codenames After Dark. I bought this game so you don't have to. I bought this. Money was spent. Mistakes were made. It was more over the top than I was expecting. The word choices were more shock factor, drug paraphernalia, adult means violence, than I was expecting. But I think this goes for party games in general. In a party game like this, you don't need an adult version. Like, the game goes where people's minds go, and depending on the group you're with, it's going to get blue without any add-ons, right? And the expansion added nothing fun or substantial to the mix, and to me, it was just ridiculous. And I mean, you can get After Dark Tapple and whatever other game you can think of in an After Dark version, a lot of party games, right? And I suspect all of them are just completely ridiculous, unnecessary, blah.
Neanderthal Poetry has an After Dark version.
Yep.
There you go.
A lot of games have After Dark versions. Not my kind of thing. I've always said before, I'm like, apples to apples can be After Dark if you want to go that way. And to me, that's more fun. Many of our Telestration games, that 6 a.m. Telestrations game Deanna was talking about,
pretty sure there was something inappropriate going on.
It has to do with Dave Russell drawing something penis-shaped. So rest in peace. Millennium Blades. Come on. What a ridiculous thing. It's a heavy euro, not just a euro, a heavy euro, an economic euro with a closed economy featuring elements of set collection and combo building that is trying to recreate the feel of playing in a trading card game tournament without being a trading card game at all, where the cards you're grabbing actually just represent the rare in each pack you buy. And it has all of the trading and economy. It even has rules for meta in the various parts of the tournament. And you start buying packs, we only know half the meta. Then halfway through your timed real-time buying of packs, you find out the other half of the meta. Like, what a ridiculous game. What a ridiculous concept. Like, why make a Euro game based on playing trading card games? But it's also one of my favorite games of all time. It's fantastic. And what a cool theme for a Euro game.
It is so bizarre. Let's make a game about playing games. And when you first told me about this, I was like, there is no way. Like, that is not going to be fun. That sounds like accounting the board game, sort of. The way you were describing it to me at the time, I was like, I think I'd much rather go buy some magic cards and maybe play a deck. That sounds awful. But it's a great game. The theming works really well, but it's so meta and so wacky.
Interestingly, you mentioned taxing the board game. I did come across a listing today for Audit the Board Game, which no one has actually reviewed yet, but does apparently exist.
I was going to get there later.
I saw that too, and I was reminded of the meme where it's like, every year I get the local board game club to complete my taxes by convincing them it's a Euro game.
That's exactly. It's actually in the show notes, a couple of paragraphs down, because I was thinking about Kanban and how when it came out, we're like, what the heck? They made a game about Mo's daytime job, like somehow. And then we played it, and it was actually fun. But it reminded me of these cartoons I'm seeing online about someone doing your taxes by convincing them it's a board game. And I was going to ask if they have made IRS board game yet, but you're telling me apparently they have.
Yes, apparently they have. One interesting one I ran across. So, I mean, we do enjoy adult beverages, and we talk about them from time to time. But we definitely encourage responsible imbibing of adult beverages, should you choose to do so. But let's be honest here. In college in particular, a lot of people drink wildly irresponsibly and use games to do that. There are whole, categories of games based around drinking, which put please drink responsibly in small print somewhere on it to cover themselves legally, and then encourage wild, irresponsible drinking. And the one I came across that just sort of highlights this for me is a game called Not Enough Mana, which is wizards dueling, and they need to fill up on mana in order to do things, and victory comes either by running out of hit points or by knockout. Knockout being too much mana.
Yeah, and if you do want to review, we did review Drinking Quest, which was an RPG drinking game. So we have covered a couple of those games.
That one wasn't ridiculous, though. That one was just kind of
not really
bad.
It wasn't really ridiculous.
For ridiculous themes, Tonto Curry came to mind. I mean, at first glance, you're like, they made a game about what? And you're chambering maids, and like, what's going on over here?
That one's still that one's hard to argue. It's just Japanese maids, and that's not sexual. And like, then why am I spending love to recruit them? And what is she doing to those pillows? For ridiculous themes, not everyone knows this one because a lot of people just show up and I teach them the game and we play it. But Galaxy Trucker is actually a game about transporting plumbing across the universe. You are actually a plumber, and you are transporting plumbing pipes, and you are making your ship out of pipes and then flying it. So ridiculous theme. And then of course the whole thing where you're building a ship just to see how beat up it gets. Like, that's the mechanic. That's the core loop of the game, is to build a ship and then to see how horrible it goes on your way to your destination and how beat up you get and see how much is left when you get there. It's just kind of neat and wacky and fun. And then the fact it's real time, so we're all building at the same time and flipping tiles, and leads to some pretty ridiculous gameplay.
You just made that game sound appealing.
There you go. See, at the end, it doesn't like that game. I love that game. So I have to bring up Xylotar from our friends at Bezier Games. Like, I still am completely baffled by this. This beats Pizza Wars for most ridiculous game for me because of the theme. Bobby Coldsnap, the polar bear who's on the run from the RCMP, and because they think he murdered the inventor of the Xylotar, and he's playing his what is it? It's like Caribbean synth music, and I like, what? What is this? Though I do have it on good authority. Here's a slight scoop. We did mention it before for something else. Bobby will be appearing at Origins Game Fair for his first North American concert since disappearing, with a Xylotar expansion available at the Bezier booth at Origins. I don't know if they have more than that planned, because there was literally a ticket they were handing out at Origins. There might be a special event going on.
Cold Snap concert ticket. And it had
I
the
have a
Origins
concert
50th
ticket.
anniversary date on it. Yes.
Yes.
That is officially the wildest theme ever.
Like it is. It just what?
Fever
I
dream.
mean, it's fever dream, but is it cute German girls rushing to defeat the evil magical Stalin weird? Because that's the theme of Barbarossa, a Japanime game with sexy Japanime girls as the German army rushing into a fictional version of World War II. I just...
Yeah.
I haven't played it, but honestly, it is one of the most bizarre themes I've seen out there. Yes.
Though it's a tank battle game, but they just personified all the tanks. Like there is a version where you can just play the tanks and play a war game. I don't know. There is a thing with personifying war objects in Japan. There's also jet games and there's animes. I don't know. The maid thing I at least get a little better. I'm going to lump a bunch of games together that I just think are ridiculous. And I guess it's like the whole game is like the whole concept, the mechanics. It's a certain style of game that became popular. And I'm going to get this wrong, but like to me, it started with Happy Salmon. There were probably others before it. But these games where you get a deck of cards, you're trying to void your hand by doing something stupid or matching someone else and doing something stupid with them. And then the first player to empty their hands wins. And I poo-pooed these games for a lot of years and kind of complained about them on the show and said they weren't games and so on. But honestly, once I played Happy Salmon, I had a lot of fun. We played Taco Cat Goat Cheese Pizza for the first time at Everybody's Place in Amherstburg and had a great time. And with Tori and Kat playing Dude was way more fun than I ever thought it was going to be. But like the whole concept of these like super fast playing party games where you do stupid things aligned with other players.
When you say we, you are clearly using the royal we. We did not have a good time.
Okay, me, Tori, and Kat had a good time.
You
Taco
and Tori probably had a good time. I
I
don't even know if you should be including Kat in that one.
No, I'm pretty sure she was at least laughing at us, if nothing else. Taco Cat Goat Cheese Pizza was weird, and Fee played that with me and actually had an awesome time to the fact that they bought a copy of the game before they left. And Happy Salmon with some of our friends from Buffalo.
I would argue, I'm not sure.
Was there when I played Happy Salmon.
Argue that Dude is naughty. Dude takes the cake. Like it's an entire game about staring at each other while saying "dude" in various intonations. Like, is that even a game? Gwen and I had a debate on how this rates versus Gelatinous and which is more of a game. And I conceded that Gelatinous might be more of a game.
Nah, Dude, the strategy. It's light role playing because you have to say Dude as a cowboy or you have to say Dude as a robot. That's more than I roll dice and then pass them to people depending on what numbers.
With zero agency.
With zero agency. There's agency in Dude.
There's
you can play Dude
badly. So Dude is more of a game than Gelatinous.
Yes.
Oh, they both just belong in a bucket. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was writing my notes and I got to Taco Cat and Dude and I'm like, oh my God, I totally forgot about a game we reviewed a long time ago. I think it was from the op and it's Super Cats. Where you have Sentai cats and you have to go like super cats and you hold out like a number of fingers and somehow the cats upgrade to become Super Sentai and they turn into their Power Ranger form. And then the player who first does that then goes against the other players who then build Robo Dog. And like there was something about holding out fists and going Robo Dog. Like I don't even remember.
What I remember is every time all of us were excitedly yelling out Robo Dog, my mom's dog was going batty.
Yes. All right. I think we're gonna call out that for pretty much most of the board games that we can think of. There's plenty more. There are a ton. But I do want to do one shout out to the RPG side of tabletop because there are some truly ridiculous role playing games out there. There's See Dracula, which is a role-playing game that uses interpretive dance to determine conflict resolution. Extreme Street Loose, which I think has 5 X's in it. And then there's Ridiculous in other ways. But I do want to call out a very specific one, which is a bit of a collector's item. TSR's Bullwinkle and Rocky, the role-playing party game. Yes, I ran this game. Yes, we played it. Yes, it comes with hand puppets. Oh my God, those plastic hand puppets make your hands sweat so much. It's the grossest game I own because of that. Yes, it's a real game. Not it's actually an improv RPG, very similar to Fairy Tale, or Once Upon a Time, which Gwen talked about a couple episodes ago. It's actually very similar. It's got tie-ins to like Rory Story Cubes, but yes, and it uses spinners. Yes, there is a Bullwinkle and Rocky role-playing party game, and there are other role-playing games, but I had to throw that one in there as one that I actually ran and was ridiculous fun when we did it. And yes, we were doing voices, and we told a whole moose and squirrel story with I can't even remember the bad guy's names. Batinoff, is that the bad guy from Bullwinkle and Rocky?
Or maybe.
Yeah, sounds close. All right, I've got an honorable mention. It's not the most ridiculous game I played, but the most ridiculous game we own, and that's anything that's been sitting on our pile of shame for years, not months, but years. And it's ridiculous. Why do we even have that? Like, obviously, I didn't need that game that much. I'm looking over there, and I can see, like, sealed Command in Colors Napoleonics. I think it's been there at least 5 years. I'm like, no.
I mean, if we're talking about ridiculous games in that house, there's only one that takes the cake. Because you need movers to get it around. The ogre. Ogre, a giant, what is it, like 4 foot by 4 foot box of that is, I mean, regardless of what the game, doesn't matter what's in the box. The fact that you have a board game that is, I guess it's probably not 4, maybe 3 by 3 foot by 3 foot, is just insane.
Yeah, and that actually kind of fits both those categories. But to be fair, I didn't buy Ogre. It was a gift.
True.
But yes, way to leave it on a downer. The most ridiculous games are the games we didn't play.
But we do have a lobby here to help us bring us back up. So we're going to check in the lobby and see the ridiculous games that they've been talking about. Starting off, we got Roger Dodger bringing up Voices in My Head. Yes. Was a really cool game with a cool disc pushing mechanism. That one really does look interesting. I would like to get to try and play Voices in My Head.
Yeah, that one, the fact that you were playing the various different voices in Rodney Smith's head. Yes, that's Rodney Smith on the cover. It is just a fascinating concept, which also reminded me of the other one, and I'm completely blanking on the name, which is rare for me, but the one where someone's dying and you go into their head and you have to like go through their memories.
Yes, we talked about that. I'm hoping Darkling Blake will remember that one.
Shoot.
Because I
can't remember the title.
Yeah, we have spoken about that one in the
Billy
past.
Kerr, Passing of Billy Kerr, something like that.
That sounds right.
Like yeah.
Hanging on, the troubled life of Billy Kerr.
There you go.
Holding on, the troubled life. No, we haven't played that one. But like, talk about a concept for a game. You're like going into a murderer's brain as they're dying. Like, what the heck?
Yeah, that's pretty.
To be honest, that one was ridiculous enough. I wasn't at all interested. Whereas Voices in My Head sounded neat.
Charlie Brown Windsor says, I also thought Play by Mail was wonky, but it turned out to be huge. And I also thought Magic was weird when it first came out. Oh, yeah.
To be fair,
yep.
I have to argue. I have to go with them on that one. So
yes, definitely. I clearly remember you coming home from a shopping trip and telling me.
That's what I was going to say. So we used to go to Livonia, Michigan every weekend with my parents. And I used to go to this one place. And at the time, I was big into role-playing games. And what I would do is every trip for a while, I was buying the newest Marvel Universe character pack for TSR's Marvel Superheroes. And this is like the old Monster Manual where you put it into a binder. And while I had the Marvel binder, and I would get like whatever the next group, it'd be like whatever, Heroes B to D or whatever. And I was buying those. And the one time I went in and I got my latest issue, and I go up to the counter, and the guy behind the counter is doing the hard sell on this stupid ass sounding game. He's like, no, you got to buy this. If you're into role-playing games, you will adore this. This is a game where you play a wizard. And the deck here, you just need this one deck to play. This deck is all your spells. And you use that as your spells while you battle other wizards. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, and there's no character sheets. And I'm like, what? And there's no dice. And I'm like, that sounds stupid. And I bought my Marvel thing and I came home. And for all I know, I passed up at least 3 Black Lotuses that day.
You came home telling me about it, and I thought it was incredibly stupid. And maybe half a year later, people showed up playing it at the local convention at the university. Yeah. And we were like, what the hell are they doing? Why are you doing that when you could be playing a real game? Like, what is this nonsense?
And then $100 later.
No, we all fell. And then that's when we all fell down a rabbit hole, a rabbit hole of much.
I bought one pack. We went to Pizza King on the way home. I read the instructions well in Pizza King. Went back to my parents' place, ate pizza, played Magic for the first time.
Mhm.
Hooked for years.
So next up, we have got Roger asking, he heard of a game where you are a gingerbread man and you are ripping off the limbs as the game progresses. And I found it already. That's is
Smirk,
Run for
isn't it?
Your Life Candyman by Smirk and Dagger. And there is an extra special version available of that, a deluxe version available of that as well.
To be fair, Smirk and Dagger, a lot of their games could probably be on this list. Heck, Boop. The game about cats jumping on a bed, and it's an abstract strategy game that's really hard to master.
The theme is ridiculous.
on
The
its
game
own.
is definitely not ridiculous, though.
No, but like the theory, the concept.
Charlie Brown asks, Mastermind, so annoying. Is Mastermind ridiculous? I don't know.
No, Mastermind was in like Playboy magazine and stuff. It was supposed to be for cultured gentlemen to play while they did cocaine and had women draping over them. At least that's the ads I saw.
Charlie Brown is
I'm not
wondering.
joking. I should find some
I
Mastermind
missed the
ads.
cocaine part. I don't know.
Charlie Brown's asking about a game about zombie brains.
I had Brains that was a dice game, push your luck dice game where you collected little plastic brains.
Wasn't
To me,
the
that
one
was-
with
that's
like a
not too
wind up
ridiculous.
zombie? Like a wind up.
That one was a little more ridiculous. The game with the wind up zombie that you had to try to escape from.
Or the one where you roll dice to determine if your fighters survive in a pit.
Oh, is that? Yeah, I guess Strike's a little ridiculous when you think about it.
Well, I mean, if you want to go, the Necromancer.
Oh, that's a good one. Dead Man's Cabal.
Yeah.
I had forgotten about that. That game was ridiculous in so many ways.
A fantastic game, but ridiculous. I mean, you are literally bringing your dates back from the dead.
Yeah, but it wasn't even just that. It was like they put out the board, and the board was all these different rooms, and they gave you corridors so you could turn your board layout to a dungeon for no reason in the game, except for
It had
you
no
can make your
purpose.
game into a dungeon. And then the components, instead of having like money, had little plastic bones. And then like they look like 3D printed skulls, but like this is back when board games were like cubes and meeples. That was pretty much what most games have. Here comes this like dark game with skulls and bones in it instead. And you're just like, what the heck is this?
But it's about having a dance party with cadavers that are themed after dead
Famous people.
celebrities.
Yes, it's who can make the best dance party.
Next up, we've got Quelf, Quelf, which is
a popular party game.
Yeah, I mean, and there's multiple versions of it now because there's Quelf Junior and Quelf Card Game. Your generic sort of you're gonna do silly things at a party game
games
kind of thing. I remember back in the day, I actually had a game. I try to remember what the theme was. The Beat the Clock. The party game.
Yep.
And it was literally, you got like a bunch of foam things and you were supposed to like do tricks. It was based on the Beat the Clock TV show. Charlie Brown played Stock Ticker.
That doesn't sound ridiculous, but doesn't.
I think that might have been when we were talking about Audit the board game. But yeah, the Stock Ticker is literally, you're playing the stock market against your friends.
All Wound Up is the game with the wind up zombie. It is from Twilight Creations. The problem I had is my zombie just kind of went in a circle. So like the game didn't even work. That goes into gimmicky games, not even just ridiculous, but like gimmicky.
Darkling Blight, I am with you. I actually don't want to play After Dark anything, but I also don't want to play party game anything. I thought it would be cute to get an After Dark version to play on date night with my husband, and it was bust, okay?
Mm-hmm.
We have, let's see, Roger Dodger thinks Charty Party seems pretty ridiculous. It is a weird one. So if you like bizarre charts, goofy card games, and want a fresh game for your next party night, give Charty Party a try. It's a game, the absurdly funny game of ridiculous charts.
Okay. There's some people that I went to meetings with in my auto industry career that I think need that game.
Do you play it before or after Kanban?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a weird one. What else we got here? Cosmic Frog is a ridiculous theme. Absolutely. Yes. 100%. No argument there.
I was sticking with games I played because despite the fact Roger brings it out all the time, I never actually have a chance to sit down and play it.
Charlie Brown mentioned Super Babes. I think that must be when we were talking about the RPGs. I don't know.
That's an RPG one.
FemForce doesn't seem ridiculous to me. I still want a copy of that just to have it. No, I can't imagine ever playing it, but just having a copy of the FemForce game, because it goes for like ridiculous amounts online. Like that game is super collectible. I need to accidentally trip across a copy in a thrift store somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And Roger says Twister. Yeah, and to be fair, Twister is actually a pretty ridiculous game.
Otherwise known as no, you're not actually going to have sex. All righty.
So I think we're going to stop here. I think that's enough ridiculousness for one night. What are some of the most ridiculous games you've played? We'd love to hear about them in the comments, on social media, or on the Tabletop Bellhop Discord. Do you have something gaming related you want to get the word out about? Consider becoming a sponsor of the Tabletop Bellhop Gaming Podcast.
Yeah, get the word out about that Kickstarter that's going to launch in June, or, let us tell our fans about your newest game releases. Maybe we can highlight your Etsy store for you. We're open to all kinds of collaborations, maybe just a one-show shout-out, or maybe some kind of longer-term deal. We want to work with you.
If you want to talk, email me, Deanna, at tabletopbellhop.com for more info and rates.
Welcome to the Bellhop's Tabletop, where we talk about the games we've been playing lately.
This is going to be a little shorter one this week because we just have one game night to talk about where we played 2 games. First up is a brand new to us card game from Grandpa Beck's Games. We've reviewed their game Skull King in the past, which we thought was fantastic. Ran into Grandpa at Grandma Expo and said, what would you recommend after Skull King? And he sent us home with a copy of Reign of Dragoness. This is a hand-shedding ladder climbing game with a dragon theme. The deck consists of multiple suits, usually one more than the number of players, with cards number 1 to 2. 1 to 12. Sorry, not 1 to 2. That'd be a very small deck. 1 to 12. And then in addition to that, every suit is ranked from 1 to 8. So like the yellow suit might be more powerful than the blue suit. And this is tracked on the cards by gem symbols, but that doesn't really matter. There's also some special cards, a 13 that beats everything else. There's some wild cards of different rages and dragon egg cards that can mess with the general system. Your goal is to void your hand as quick as possible. Your hand is 13. Player with the lowest rank 1 card starts, but there is where it gets interesting. You are going to play a set. This actually reminds me a lot of 7 Deadly Sins, or the Deadlies, sorry. A lot of the Deadlies, because you can play 1 card, a set of the same numbered cards, or a run of up to 5 cards. You play those into the top of the pile. The next player has to play onto your discards, but then has to play something that is the exact same pattern. So another single card, or another set of 3 identical cards, or 5 identical cards, or a run that's exactly the same length as the other one. So for example, if someone plays 3 of a kind, the next player must play 3 of a kind. But you have to beat the previously played highest card. So if you're going to play 3 of a kind on a 3 of a kind, if you're both playing 3s, for example, it would have to be a higher ranked. But if you could play 3 4s or 3 10s or 3 12s as well. So you always have to beat what's already face up, but you have to follow the pattern. And that's the important thing, is catching that pattern set by the lead. If you can't play, you can throw down an egg card if you have it. That resets the value. You still have to match the pattern, but you no longer have to match the number. So like if your single card's at 12, you could throw it at 11, you can throw an egg on it and then go back down to 2, say, to be able to play your cards. That's pretty much it. Once everyone, if you can't play, you pass, you just put your cards down on the table. Once everyone but 1 player has passed, the round ends. That player gets 3 points. The person with the second least number of cards, or the least cards left besides that player, gets 2 points. And the person who has the least cards after that gets 1 point. And that's pretty much it. Like, you play 5 rounds of this, and that's the entire game. Most points wins after 5 rounds. You played this with us. Does that pretty much cover it?
There's some advanced variant rules, but we haven't tried those yet. So yeah, you pretty much hit everything, except I do not agree with you that this feels like the Deadlies, because the Deadlies, each card has its own unique, each suit, has its own unique power. And that's not going on here, right? These are just numbered cards with cute dragon art on them.
No, just the deadlies in that you can play 3 different types of ways. You can play a set, you can play a single card, or you can play a run. That's the part that reminded me of the deadlies.
For flavor, it felt more like Great Dalmoody than the deadlies to me.
Yes. Yeah, it actually is. I found it very similar to Great Dalmoody, but you don't have a pyramid deck here, so that's actually very different. I enjoyed it. I thought it was really neat. There was something just familiar about it. It feels like a traditional card game. Production quality is awesome. The art is fantastic. The rules were super clear. You get a recipe in the box. This time it's for a drink, Dragon's Brew, because that's something Grandpa Deck does, is includes a Beck family recipe in every copy of the game. Compared to Skull King, this was almost dead simple. Like, this is much easier to learn and quicker to pick up. Scoring is really simple. This is definitely a more approachable, easier to play. This is going to be a great game, in my opinion, to introduce your card gaming friends, your traditional card gaming friends to, and possibly let them experience some hobby gaming.
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking this is the one you break out at Christmas with your aunts and uncles and play with grandma. It's just so approachable, right?
Up next was a 4-player game of Emerald Skull. To hear about how the game plays, listen to previous episodes. This time we used the advanced betting cards for the first time, and I got to say they made the game much more interesting. That's in both parts of the game. So this is a game where you're one person's rolling dice and playing a push your luck game while everyone else is betting on their outcome. When playing with the full rules, there are more options when betting. The introductory game only has 4. You play with 6 cards, and they're grouped into sets. So you have like 2 jackpot cards, 2 basic roll cards, and 2 intermediate cards. So it gives you a range of different things to bet on. One of the other things that happens with these is a lot of the cards have bet on a thing or bet against a thing. So you can be like, you're going to skull out. Well, once someone's bet, you're going to skull out. Other players can now bet, no, they're not. And then their bet increases for the number of people who are opposing your bet. So there's a little more player interaction there. That's not just who can place their bets the fastest. And then there's some strategy too, because you're like, you kind of want to hold out on putting down the one thing until you think it's close that it's going to happen. But as soon as you do it, you might have a bunch of people jumping against you. And it just made for some interesting decisions and honestly timing rules for where things pay out. And I got to say, I've already kind of been on the fence about Emerald Skulls. Well, this bumped it up a notch for me. I think the kids and Brenda felt the same. I think this is a neat game, though it still has the main complaint I mentioned last time of, if I want gamer craps, I want to be able to explain it in 10 seconds and just start playing. And you can't do that with this. And it's even worse when you have 6 different bets you have to explain than when you only have 4. So there's where the game falls down. But I got to say, it's really neat. Like, it's a fun game. I think gamers are going to like it, but I don't think it's the game. It's not Skull or Reign of Dragoness for dice players, right? That's not what this is. This is definitely a little more meat to it. What I need to do is I need to get the public to play this. I need to get people to play it, hopefully at Walkerville, hopefully tomorrow, and see if that learning curve is as bad as it feels to me.
Well, it's one of those games where if you can get your gamer group to try it, you'll probably have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, but that's my theory.
Fair enough. Well, that's all, unfortunately, what games we've been playing. What about you? What hit your table recently? We'd love to hear about it on the Tabletop Bellhop Discord at discord.tabletopbellhop.com. The problem with brokering trade between raccoons and possums is that they don't speak the same language, but they do share one thing in common, a love for trash. So maybe you can make this work.
So that's the rather ridiculous theme for Trash Talk from Matt Fantastic and Andrea Pincombe. This was published in 2023 by Friendly Skeleton, who we have to thank for hooking us up with a copy at Gamma Expo after playing a few rounds with us.
Trash Talk is a cooperative word game where you are trying to get your teammates to guess which of the odd objects you assigned to a selection of random words, working together to develop a language based on bits of trash.
And the bits of trash in this case are some of the most ridiculous board game components that I've ever seen. They include things like a wind-up car shaped like a dinosaur head, a small slinky, a plastic plant, a diamond-shaped paperclip, a shiny stone, one of those little paper drink umbrellas, and whatever that weird blue thing is supposed to be, and more.
So actually playing this game involves the raccoon player setting up a screen in front of them and picking 3 objects out of the 10 in the game to use for that round. They're going to take one of each of these and put it behind their screen and then give their teammates, which can be any number of players, the matching set. 3 random word cards are drawn and placed in front of the screen so everyone can see them. Then the raccoon assigns their 3 pieces of junk to the words, 1 piece of junk per word behind the screen. No talking or hints allowed at this point. Actually, the least you see, like even watching the raccoon player's eyes can kind of throw things away here. You almost want to do this as blind as possible to make the game as fun as possible.
Once the raccoon is done, the other players, the possums, talk amongst themselves and assign each piece of their trash to the words on the table, trying to guess or deduce what the raccoon has done behind their screen. Lots of talking allowed here, but not from the raccoon.
Once the possums are done, the screen's lifted, and if both sets of trash match, you win the round, everyone high fives, and you move on to the next round. If you get at least one match, you're thankful you didn't lose the game. You argue a bit about why everyone picked what they did, and then you draw a new card for each object that you didn't match, and you get one more shot. If you don't match anything at all, your team just sucks. You lose the game, and everyone argues with everyone else about who was wrong and why they were right.
Now, when you do win a round, you start a new one with the same team, so you don't switch up who's raccoons and who's possums, but you add one more piece of trash. So the raccoon picks one more piece of trash for them and gives a matching one to their teammates. And then when you're putting out the cards, you're going to put out one more card. Keep winning, keep adding more cards. Always remember, though, is if you get one word right at least, you get a second chance if you do mess up. And no matches at all means game over, man. Now, if you do manage to get 10 matches, apparently this is possible. That's a full 10 cards. That's all 10 objects that come in the game. Every single one in the box, you beat the game and you can, go for drinks or something. Now, if you didn't get to 10, which good luck, or you're just not satisfied at that point, getting to 10, you need to do it again, pass the raccoon roll to someone else and play over.
Now, when playing with only 2 players, both players get a screen and you both place your objects at the same time. You can also play Trash Talk in teams. Each team gets their own screen. You both place objects simultaneously and can gesture and talk in code, but have to be careful not to give away anything to the other team.
There's also a couple alternate rules, one which allows no discussion at the end of the round or sharing why you picked what object with what word, which does make things way harder. And then there's the BYOT rules where you can bring your own trash, which our daughters loved playing, where you provide any pair of objects. The kids had so much fun by pulling out all these various oddball trinkets and toys that they've collected over the years and playing it with them. Yeah.
Yeah, this game, it's trash talk. It's fun. It's silly. It's cool. It's got some really ridiculous, unique components. I still wonder where the heck they pick the 10 specific items of trash. Like, I'm wondering if someone just got on the phone with the manufacturer in China and said, what do you have the most left over on? Like, what do you have dirt cheap? And they're like, oh, you got this weird blue alien finger puppet thing. And like, sure, we'll take those. It's odd stuff. But then, you know what? It's kind of smart because the stuff they did pick, and I don't know how much thought went into this or if it just worked on the first play test, but like all of these things can have multiple meanings. Like the wind-up car is a car. It has 4 wheels. It's orange. It's shaped like a dinosaur. It's pullback. It has motors. Like there's all these things just about that one object. And that's what makes this game work.
It's a game that comes with a small plastic tree, a slinky, and a pullback car. And the theme is that you are possums and raccoons trying to build a common language. Like, does it get any weirder than that?
You're not battling area control over a pizza, but this is definitely one of the strangest games we've ever played. Now, one thing in this game that I found that was kind of interesting, and it's actually suggested on the back of the screens, kind of have gameplay hints, and it notes that you end up with like a kind of emergent gameplay that happens when you play with the same group for multiple rounds. And you'll tend to get this, like if you get past like round 1 and 2, you start to like figuring out the way the raccoon's thinking. And you start paying attention to why someone assigned that object to that word. And then you can get an idea of what they're thinking about when they look at that object and then be better able to match it up in later rounds. And the brilliant part about this is how it ties to the theme, because when you're at that level and you're doing that, you literally are making a kind of language between the two groups of players.
Yeah, it's clever and it's fun for what it is. We've had some great family game nights with this game. The kids adore it. Playing it with them is fun. Is it my kind of game? No, but I dislike party games. So I absolutely guarantee if you put this out on the table at a public play event, people are going to come over and ask what the heck you were playing, because it is one of the weirdest looking games in our collection.
Yeah, it was funny because we'd seen this game both at Gamma Expo and at Origins previous years. And it was the game that everyone was playing at the after parties and the after events. Like if you went to the big bar on 2 at Origins, there was someone in the corner where they had the screen up and there's this the plastic plant really stuck out. And you're like, I don't know what they're doing. They're playing that game with the plastic plant again. And I thought there was a plastic frog. I think that might have been the car. And then like we're at Gamma Expo and it's one of those, like we're walking through the Galt House and at the tables by the window, there's 2 different groups playing Trash Talk. And I'm just like, this game is everywhere. I don't really have much more to say about this one. Like it is what it is. It's got cool wonky components. There's interesting wordplay. The word clues are suited to the objects in all the right and wrong ways. Game's fun in all modes of play, and it's got fantastic table presence. I love bringing this out to public play events because if I can get just one table playing, that game's going to be out all night. Apparently, Skeleton's got a hit here. This is a unique game. And it's also a game I've never seen anyone just play once. But I've also never seen anyone get to 10 words. But I've heard it can be done.
If you don't like cooperative games, you probably want to skip Trash Talk. There is no real way to play competitively here. Another thing to watch for is that the game features English language words. And if English isn't your first language, you might struggle with playing Trash Talk. Though you can have someone that can define each word at the start of each round to possibly help with that. Now, there are also some localized versions of the game out there, so you might want to look and see if it's been published in your native tongue.
So, yes, there is a Hungarian version for certain, but no other official versions as of today.
Oh, okay. All I know is looking on Board Game Geek, I saw a lot of covers with different languages on them, it seemed like. So if you like word games, pick up Trash Talk. If you like cooperative games, pick up Trash Talk. You like games with wonky themes? Pick up Trash Talk. You know what? Just pick up your trash. If you don't normally like word games, honestly, try this one. Give it a shot because it's strange enough. It could just draw you in. Plus, there's no worry about the things you often have to worry about in word games about vocabulary and big words and spelling. And none of that really matters because you're just matching objects to the words. And as long as someone's there to define the word cards before you start, you're probably going to be good.
Yeah, this is a game that really seems to sort of excel in that late night, you're too tired to really think. So let's just, words and trash. We have the brain power for that. Let's go.
Race car, alien, bow tie, coin plant.
Well, clearly Mo here is trying to say that that's all we have to say about Trash Talk from Friendly Skeleton, a rather ridiculous word-based party game.
Honey stick.
Yes, that's right. We don't get in the Trash Talk box, coffee. If you've enjoyed this review, reward us with a brew by heading to tabletopbellhop.com/coffee.
Words of a Feather is one of the most ridiculously overproduced party games that we have ever come across.
So this word game was originally crowdfunded by Turn Sideways Games, and then was picked up by our former sponsor, Grand Gamers Guild. It's designed by Rusty Ciosi and features striking peacock-themed artwork from Soul Aspros. Plays 3 to 8 players, with games being nice and quick.
The artwork on the box is gorgeous. It's got like an Art Nouveau look to it. They actually created the box in a way that it's meant to be hung on your wall like a piece of art, which is pretty unique. We tried it. It's functional. It can be done. It was on our dining room wall for a while. We even hung it up on a pillar at the Walkerville Brewery at one of our public play events just to catch people's attention. So that's kind of neat.
Now, it's not just the box that people notice. This game features actual ceramic bowls in beautiful patterns, brightly colored plastic gemstones, and word cards that feature peacock feather-inspired artwork. When setting up the game, you are meant to lay them out in a circular pattern of overlapping cards with bowl and gems in the middle, giving you a giant sort of star of peacock feather.
Now, the Kickstarter Deluxe version of the game came with 3 bowls, 3 different colors of gemstones, and 3 different sets of word cards. Now, the retail version, which is what we have, Again, thanks to our previous sponsor for a review copy. Actually, I should have called that out earlier. My bad. The retail version, which is what we have, only comes with one of these. So you get one bowl, one set of gems, and one set of words. And the problem with this is they didn't produce like a different box or insert. So you end up with this massive box and this insert that's clearly designed to hold all this stuff. And I got to admit, when I opened this, it felt like I was missing something. Like when you're open the retail version, you're like, what the heck? It's like half empty. Why are there spots for all this other stuff? So that's not a good feeling when you get that. Now, thankfully, Grand Gamers Guild does still have copies of the deluxe edition, which I gotta say, like, it's only $10 more than the base game. So you actually get 3 times more content if you pick up the deluxe version. So if you are interested in this, by the time we get to the end review, if this sounds like a game you'd enjoy, I do recommend going that route.
And if you do decide to pick it up, if you get it before the end of May, you'll get an extra 10% off if you use our special code Bellhop.
All right, well, enough about how this game looks. Let's talk about how the game actually plays.
So Words of a Feather is a word guessing game. One of those games where one player is giving out clues and other people are trying to guess a secret word, right? So players get a hand of these peacock cards. They get 5 of them, and each card has one word on it. They're going to pick 2 of their 5 cards to use, then come up with a shared word, a secret word that they write down on a dry erase board. They then announce the 2 words on their cards, but then get to add a 3rd word of their own creation to the other players. So you're stuck with 2 words from your hand, add in a 3rd word to try to give players hints of your secret word.
The other players then guess what the active player's secret word is. If they're confident in a match, they can bet up to 2 of their points. Players note their answers and any bets on their own dry erase boards, and then once everyone is ready, the words are revealed.
The active player gets 1 point per player who matches with them. Each other player gets 1 point if anyone else matches with them, not just the active player. Anyone who placed a bet doubles it if they match with anyone else, and with all other bets being lost. Play continues until one player hits 15 points with up to 5 players, or 20 with up to 8.
So that's pretty much it. It's a pretty simple, basic word game, which got a couple neat things going on. And the big thing here is just how ridiculously overproduced it is. Like, you've got a game that can be played with a single deck of word cards and honestly some sheets of paper. That's all you need, is this random deck of cards and some paper and a pencil. You don't need the plastic gemstones because you can just track your score on paper like many people have done for traditional games for years. Though I do admit the gemstones I do like, and they're the kind you find in many board games. I'm like, okay, it's nice to have a visual representation of your score. Cool enough. The box is huge, especially when compared to what you get in the retail version of the game. So it's like 2/3 empty. The bowls are pretty, and like they make a really neat sound when you're pouring the gemstones into them. Like, the art's nice. It's got a nice style. And I got to say, it looks great when you do the whole peacock feather going in a circle thing, and it looks like a peacock's butt just exploded in front of you. I don't know, but none of that does anything to make the game better. And honestly, one of the worst parts about this game is building that pattern. It takes forever to lay out these little cards and circles and putting cards between them and trying to make concentric circles that still actually look good. And you're like, do I put them in between or do I not? And like, this is one of those games, and we mentioned a couple of these recently, where like it's a quick playing party game where the setup can take longer than playing the full game.
Yeah, okay. So first off, I'm going to argue that I think the gemstones are actually a quality of life upgrade. There's something about being able to physically hand out points that I like instead of having to have a score pad and a running tally. It's just for game flow purposes. I like it better there for many reasons, the tactile nature. Otherwise, yes, it looks very striking when it's out on the table, but it is just ridiculously over the top. It fits in with our theme for the evening.
Yes.
Yeah, the cubes are especially nice because of the betting. I like the physicality of betting makes a difference, I find.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Fair. And I like, don't get me wrong. It's not like I don't like pretty games, especially because I host public play events. Like, they're great for public play events. I want games with table presence. I want games where people come over and go, what is this? But this is actually too much. And the reason I'm saying that is because I've taken the time to build the giant peacock feather thing, and I've hung the board game box on a pillar in front of the game, and no one has shown any interest in playing. No one's even approached it. So I had to actually go around our event and say, hey, do you want to try a word-based party game, blah, 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 and then walk them over. And then I asked the people, I said, honest opinion, like I'm reviewing this game, why did you walk past this? And they just said, well, it looks too fancy. It looks complicated. It looks like there's a lot going on. There's no way this could be simple with that much stuff and that much production. And to me, that's like a total fail of presentation, because the game itself is a light word-based party game. Like it should be lumped in with games like Categories and Catchphrase and Taboo.
Right. And conversely, when you had it sitting and set up, it drew the attention of one of the heaviest gamers that comes out to our events, right? And he made a beeline for it from across a crowded room, and then was disappointed when he said, hey, Deanna, tell me about this game. And I said, well, it's a light party game, word game. And he's like, oh, okay. It's not actually what I was looking for. I'm going to go grab something else, But so there's definitely mixed matched expectations there.
Yeah, that's exactly what the words I was going to use. Mismatched expectations sort of encapsulates everything about this game. The beauty and the quality of the components and the quantity of things, even in the base game, when you're only getting 1/3 of the content, is still a lot of cards and things, but it's just a simple party game. And it's a fun party game, but do you really want to mess up your pretty cards to play the silly party game even,
Yeah. So like another comment from someone who was at one of the events who passed up on the game was, I don't want to have to set that up again. I don't want to play it because having to reset up for the next round looks like too much work. Now, to be fair, you usually lay out way more cards than you need, so you can just keep playing with what's left. So I will admit that's a little better. But like, honestly, when I break this game out now, I just put out the nice bowl with its nice gems, and I put out a single deck of cards. I don't bother spreading the peacock feathers out. If someone has to draw a card, they take it from the top of the deck. Because honestly, that's no different than pulling it from the peacock's tail. Because the peacock's tail, the word cards are all face down. So you're getting a random card either way. Like maybe I would understand going through that extra work if the words were face up. Because then you could pick a word that went well with the words you have, and then maybe there'd be a rule where you can only pick cards that aren't covered up, and that whole peacock feather pattern would mean something. But as written, no. Like the game's just quicker to set up and quicker to play, and I can jump right in by just putting a stack of cards out there. Here's a bowl and here's a thing, and there's my 30-second setup for playing a word game that I actually want.
Right. I mean, sure, it's less flashy, but it's also far less fiddly and just way quicker to play. Though I will say we have talked about house ruling it potentially to do the face upwards, and I think that could be a fascinating variant. Not that we've tried it.
And there are multiple commenters on Board Game Geek who agree that we don't set it up. We just have a deck of cards now.
Now, sticking with the gameplay, there is something here I actually love, like something that to me actually makes this game kind of special. This game has something great about it. It's that the players in this game don't just get points for matching the active player. I adore the scoring here, where you get points if you match with anyone else at the table. You don't have it. Sean's the one giving his obscure clue with his 5 words. None of that matters if I'm on the same page as Deanna, which I love that. I adore that you get points when you match with someone else. I like that you don't have to be on the same wavelength with the person giving the clues. You just have to be the same wavelength with someone. It adds a really neat group dynamic to the table that makes every game feel unique. And it bridges things like education, language, and age gaps, because it doesn't matter. Like my kids do very well at this game when both playing together. While they're not great at guessing mom or dad's words, they're great at guessing what each other will say to mom or dad's clues. I don't know of any other word game that scores like this. And honestly, I want to see this more often. Like I'm thinking of other word games in my collection and wondering if I can add this in as a hack, because I really like that you don't have to guess what that one specific person is guessing. Now, I guess Blank Slate kind of does this because everyone's guessing an answer at once. And in that game, you only want to match one person, but it at least looks at multiple answers. You're not trying to answer one person, but it's a little different. Like, honestly, this is the thing that elevates Words of a Feather. Like, this is where it's now is like, okay, it's a neat, small word-based party game, but it does something cool that I like. And that's why I keep bringing it out to events, even though people tend to ignore it.
And I have to point out how unique that is, because with so many of this style of party game, the first thing we do is throw the scoring system out the window and just play it for kicks. And this is one where I wouldn't do that, where the scoring system is part of the fun.
I do think, however, that between the scoring system and the ability to add your own, your own word completely separate from the game, makes this a much easier game. So if you want to go with the easiest option, you really can. You don't have to, again, if we had the words up, as we talked about as a possible house rule, you could go for harder things. But realistically, when you get to add your own word and you don't have to match with that person, you can match with other people. It really does lower the difficulty of this game down, which could be good or bad, depending on what it is you're looking for.
And we were talking about in our last review about emergent gameplay. And honestly, as a player, you're better not matching the active player. The active player gets a point for everyone that matches them. You're better matching someone else at the table. So there's a whole other level there that we didn't really get into. So yeah, here we have Words of a Feather, a really fun word guessing game with a fascinating scoring system that I love, and a massive box with over-the-top production levels that do nothing to add to it. I can forgive all that though, because the price point on this, despite how overproduced it is in that party game price point level to me. You are only paying $20 for this ridiculousness. That's for the retail price point. The deluxe is only $10 more, so it's only $30 for 3 times the content in the base game. And I gotta say, it kind of turns the whole review around. I'm like, well, I guess it's overproduced, but for that price, that's actually very reasonable.
And don't forget, it's even cheaper if you use our code Bellhop, which is good until the end of May.
Now, one quick note that all of the word cards in Grand Gamers Guild printing are in English, so be aware of that before buying. Internationally, you can find the French version from the original publisher and a German version localized by Funbot.
All right, so I got a card for finished, I got a card for over, and I'm going to add complete. Go.
I'm betting 2 on done, because that's the end of our look at Words of a Feather. There are a lot of word-based party games out there, each with its own twists. What's your favorite? Let us know in the comments wherever you found this review, post something on the Tabletop Bellhop Discord, or fire off an email to Mo or Sean at tabletopbellhop.com. Everyone loves Pusheen the cat, and now you can bring Pusheen and her friends to the game table with Pusheen the Stacking Game.
So this is a simple to learn, very quick to play dexterity game featuring characters from the Pusheen universe, which got started on the Everyday Cute webcomic by artist Claire Belton and co-writer Andrew Duff. Now, Pusheen the Stacking Game is actually a re-theme of Kitten, spelled like a tin, Kittin, by Caesar Al-Jazar and Simon Milburn. Now, this is actually a game we've talked about on our podcast before. Both games are published by Alley Cat Games, so the cat thing kind of fits there.
This cat stacking game plays 2 to 4 players individually, or up to 8 if you play in 2-player teams. It's listed as for ages 6 and up on the box, and games take 3 to 15 minutes.
Now, this Pusheen game comes in a very small, nice, and portable box that is filled with tiny wooden shapes, with silkscreen Pusheen characters on it. Oddly, the images don't really match the shapes. Like, Pusheen is a big, fat, round cat, but the piece she's on is shaped like steps. There's also a set of cards showing different patterns you will be trying to create with the shapes, and a rulebook that is pretty clear and concise, except for one important thing.
So the rulebook in Pusheen the Stacking Game specifically calls out that your stacks must perfectly match the cards, but the sloth piece in every printing of this game was printed wrong. The images all face the same way on both sides of the sloth block, whereas all the other ones are swapped left to right. So they're facing opposite ways in the box. So this means that sometimes you can't perfectly match a card. Now, this is a really simple thing to fix once you realize this mistake. Just make it so the art has to match, not the exact shape of the piece. And all it is which corners are curved. So not a biggie issue, but still an issue.
And that pretty much gives away how this game's played. You're going to dump all the pieces in the middle of the table. Someone flips up the top card from the deck, and everyone rushes to recreate the pattern on the flipped up card as quick as they can, and whenever they do, they get to yell meow.
The other players validate the match, making sure that at least one side of the stack matches the card. If it does, they win the card. If they don't, they're out for the round, and everyone else goes back to stacking until someone else says meow. A player is also eliminated if they knock over their stack.
The first player to collect 3 cards wins. Like, that's it. Flip, stack, meow, win. Now, you can also play Pusheen, the stacking game, with up to 4 teams of 2 players each. When playing in teams, you place all the pieces in the middle, but you're going to lay out 4 different cards face down. The oldest player flips up one of the cards, and then one player in each team, only one of the pair of 2, called the Pusheen Cuddler, thought that was cute, works to build the shown pattern on the face-up card. When they have it, they say meow, it gets confirmed, and then they push all their pieces to the back of the table and swap off to the other player, kind of tag team style. The other player on the team becomes the new cuddler. They flip up the next card clockwise if face down and continue building. Meanwhile, the other players, if they're still working on it, still have to finish the first pattern. You keep playing until one team has completed all 4 cards.
Finally, there is one more rule. If you have kids and they're getting frustrated by losing to adults, you can even things out by insisting that the adults at the table play one-handed.
Sounds simple? Well, it is simple. Dead simple. This was one of the few games on Board Game Geek with a weight of 1 that we totally agree with. Yeah. The box here says ages 6 and up, and honestly, you can probably go way lower as long as your kid doesn't like putting things in their mouth. The community says 3+.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a game that honestly, had it existed, I probably would have picked up for Gwen when she was a preschooler, but also one we would have had to keep away from Eve at the same age.
Yeah, that whole choking hazard thing. So maybe yes, maybe no.
So Pusheen the Stacking Game is a retheme of Kitten. And my main problem with that is Kitten's a better game. What makes Kitten better is that the pieces are actually shaped like little cats. They don't have any artwork. There's no silk screening. There's no confusion between the artwork and the cards. They're like little cat meeples. There is nothing done in this Pusheen version of the game to improve on Kitten. There's nothing new here. There's no new mode of play. And honestly, the rules are identical and laid out in almost word for word. Just the art changed. It's the same game with worse pieces, but a Pusheen theme. I get it. Pusheen's quite popular. It was my kids that asked me to get a review copy of this because they love Pusheen, especially Eve. And this game has actually been a big hit at Gwen's high school board gaming club, again, because it's a Pusheen game. At our Walkerville events, kids are drawn to this because it's a Pusheen game. But for me, that is not enough to sell the game, especially if you own Kitten.
Yeah, and as we've talked about, they made a mistake with the artwork here. I mean, the cats are printed onto the pieces, but the cats are not the shape of the piece. In Kitten, you have the cat is the entire shape of the piece, right? You're cat stacking. It makes sense. It's just more cohesive. And there is the confusion of the sloth card where the illustration doesn't match the physical wooden piece. It doesn't quite match up. And this actively ticked off our kids. Like, we have 2 Pusheen loving teenagers who should be the target market for this game. And instead, it just made them angry. I actually checked in with Gwen before doing this review, and she's like, yes, no, it made me very angry. And it really made my sister angry. And she refuses to ever play this one again.
Now, there is one change between Kitten and Pusheen is Kitten comes in a tin, which makes it great for tossing in a backpack, gym bag, purse, glove box. The Pusheen box is cardboard, sturdy cardboard, but not quite as portable or durable. Now, I admit, on my game shelf, I prefer game boxes. I am not a huge fan of tins, so that is the one thing for me. Pusheen fits on my shelf better.
See, and as much as I agree with you there, I think the tin for such a small portable, you really want to just have this in your backpack kind of game makes it better.
Yep, I can see that. Now, I know it's a lot of negativity, but what I will point out is the gameplay here is fun for what it is. Like this is the kind of game that's designed to be played with young kids, but can also be a lot of fun for adults and perhaps made better with some adult beverages. For any adult who enjoys, animal upon animal, you're going to have fun with this type of thing as well. Though note the pieces are tiny. They are very small. People with sausage fingers may have a hard time with this. And honestly, if I hadn't played Kitten first, I'd probably be praising this game a lot more. It's simple, it's quick play, it's super portable. You get it right away. There's almost no explanation necessary. This is also one of those games, because of its small size, you can pretty much play this anywhere there is a flat surface, even a small one, even the smallest of the round coffee table tables, you can probably fit the game.
It's true. I could see being way more receptive to this game if we hadn't already played Kitten. If this was my first experience with it, I'd be, yeah, it's pretty neat. But you can't help compare them because it's just the same game with an IP pasted on.
Well, I think there's probably a good chance that most Pusheen fans, being as young as they are, have absolutely no clue about Kitten. So there is that.
Yeah, because that's it. Like, right, the market for this game is Pusheen fans, and as a small, cheap game that fans of the character in comics will probably have fun with, it hits its mark. But like for hobby gamers like me, and I'm sure everyone listening, like, go pick up Kitten. It's from the same publisher. I like pitch it up for the reasons we already mentioned. The only reason I would pick up a copy of this is as a gift for someone who loves Pusheen. I could also see classrooms. This would be a good classroom game. Libraries, have this in the, the kids area of a library. There are definitely places this game fits. But like for the gamers, for those of you listening, we're not stealing business from Alley Cat to recommend their competitor. They're both from the same publisher. Gamers are going to want Kitten.
Well, that's it for our review of Pusheen the Stacking Game, a game that's cute and simple and easy to get into, just like the comic it's based on.
You know what else is cute and easy to get into? The t-shirts over in the Tabletop Bellhop merch store. Any fans of Pusheen might want to check out our Cats Jumping on a Bed shirt in particular. It features adorable art by our daughter Gwendolyn and is inspired by a popular game about cats jumping on a bed.
You can find that at tabletopbellhop.com/merch.
Well, that was the double bell.
Means our shift's coming to an end and we're going to have to lock the lobby doors.
Before we start locking things down, let's take a moment to thank a selection of our Tabletop Bellhop Patreon patrons.
Chris Leary, thank you.
Charlie Brown Windsor, thank you for the support.
Roger Dodger, thank you.
Diane Tuzano, thanks, Di.
Thank you, Kator. You actually got a shout out this episode.
Jeff and Sheila Seuss, thank you. Now, your first stop to finding us should be at tabletopbellhop.com, but you can find us all over the web and social media as Tabletop Bellhop, one word, and on your podcatcher of choice as the Tabletop Bellhop Gaming Podcast.
We love answering your gaming game night questions online, through email, and of course here on the podcast, just like our Ask the Bellhop segment earlier tonight. And if you do have a question for us, you can send it to questions@tabletopbellhop.com. or head over to the webpage and click on Ask the Bellhop, or honestly, like social media, send me a DM, whatever you want to do.
Send them anywhere. Mo's listening. He's always listening. I'm less paying attention, but you could theoretically email me, Deanna at tabletopbellhop.com if you wanted to. Your questions fuel our content. We could not come up with topics like tonight's without you guys writing in.
Well, that's all for us tonight.
For the Tabletop Bellhop Gaming Podcast, I'm Sean.
I'm Deanna.
And I'm Mo.
Thank you.
And game on.